Hello, I have been asked to do a painting tutorial for HextonHills map tiles by GravenGuild, and I have a whole box of primed tiles waiting to be painted, so here we go. So here is 4 tiles that I figured I should include in this tutorial. We have a swamp tile, a lake and a river tile, a start of a lake up in the forest, no, a start of a river, sorry, up in the forest, and an epic city tile. We also have references, because I painted these kind of tiles before, and here's an epic city, so we want this. And for the swamp I have this. This one starts in the forest, so we want forest to look something like this. And for the river, I want them to be something like this. This is the base paint I have for the blue, for the water, Cantor Blue from Citadel paints. I think in general that grey is a very good base for primer, because at least where I live, the rock that you reach when you dig is grey. So for me it's a very good paint to have as a base, a very good color to have as a base. And since we are doing blue, go for this as well. The water, I think, start up here, goes down here. I'm not quite sure yet if I think that the water is not very deep here, it's more like a flat waterfall, so we will have a lighter color on top of this, but this will do for now. This paint I use as a base for ground, Castellan Green. And if you look at the model, you can sometimes see that it looks like it's rock close to the shore. Then I keep the grey, don't paint on it. For the darker green used for vegetation, I used this one. And then I often to get some more color to a scene. I often try to do some of the bushes or vegetation in some other color, and this time I do this one totally red. It will look exceptionally red at this moment, but bear with me, it will look far better when you see it in the situation and when we are done. And then we need to add some grey, and then I use this base grey, like putting a little color on the rocks that I have painted blue, and my brush was too wet. Sorry about that. If you look at this, you see it's not perhaps that obvious, but I try to have the same green like this one around here on the edges at least. So I go for, whoops, sorry, this green again. Some way to go still, but we'll get there. Now these two will have to dry, and we'll continue with the next layer. Got to say, these swamp tiles, they are a little bit tricky. You have to be take a real good look, because this part here, it's the highest point, it's raised, and then you have a lower part here. That is the part that I have painted orange. So we have 3 steps, and then down here you have water. So you have to really look for the layers here. So I will paint this part here orange, then we have some vegetation here, which I will paint and get this color, and then the water down here. So you have to look really careful, and I am now starting to wonder what kind of level this part is, but I think it will be orange. So orange, 1 second. For orange I use this orange, and here we have a tree root sticking up. We'll take care of that later. And it's not hugely important if you get the orange and the blue water exactly in the right place, except for the edges where you have to meet another tile. for me, I often use the maps I do, I often photograph them, so they need to look good from this angle as well. As for the water in the swamp, I start with Incubee Darkness. It's quite a green, blue, dark color that I think suits perfectly. I want my swamps to look a bit poisonous, like in a very unhealthy place. Not really fair to swamps, I guess, but when I looked at photos of swamps, most swamps were green, and I'm painting quite a lot of green as it is, so I wanted some variation, simply as that. That is, by the way, quite a good thing to do when you start painting, before you start painting, to look at photos of the kind of nature you want to have on your tiles, to get inspiration for colors. Be so that it will be hard to catch on camera how to paint these, but if you look at it here, you can see that I do a variation of colors on the roofs. I'm thinking these are straw roofs, and then you have grey stone slabs and some kind of bricks in different colors, and there's a piece of wood here where you have a ladder, and here's a stable and so on. So don't be afraid to use different colors here. So our base layer is dried, and we can now put on shades to make them look good. We start with this one, and we wanted to be able to match it with this one, so we can put these together. We need to do something with the ground and with the water. And if you look at this, it could be a lake or a wide river. We might want some other shade when the water gets deeper. If you put a few of these other tiles in the series together, you can see that the waves start way out here, and you can have as a marker the rim of the tab. That's where the water gets deeper, so you need to have this place here. You need to have a change in color on every tile. This is the green I use. This, when you come to the layer colors, they are not as thick as the base colors, these are transparent, so you probably need to add another coating with it if you want to really get the color, but let it be for now and see how it matches this one when it has dried. We have a little bit of bushes, we have a little bit of grass here, but no grass, seaweed I think it's called in English. But now we want to match the water, and I use this one, and for the white shade I need to use this one. Seaweed. I will use a little bit of green, this green, it's not a place where waves crash up on the land exactly, so you don't want too much white. Maybe a little bit up here as well. Water stands still a little bit more over there. I will try something. I haven't actually tried this one. I don't want I want deep dark blue here for deeper color, but I don't want the same as I'm using on the swamp or as for the sea. So I'm trying to use, see how this will look. So this is the worst that could happen. But I have learned that you should think what is the best that could happen as well. And when you look at it, you have a waterfall here. It will be some white down here where the water hit. It will be a lot of foam, and then it's pretty shallow here. I bet you can walk across here with just getting your feet wet. So it's a color that is way too make it look too deep. So that will be one of the first things that we will do, and then we will add another shade of green around here. So we match this one and some shades on the mountain as well. see what that looked like when it was dried. And now we need to do the same here as we did on this one over here. So, and then we have the waterfall. And the waterfall, if you look at photos of the waterfall, you see that it's actually white all the way down, as well as the same green that we had before. Colors in the windows. That is one thing that I think give the city some life, is to point out the windows, and with a bit of yellow in them. It sort of makes it alive in a way. It gets more like a house look to it. And the funny thing with this is, okay, this is very few houses on this, but in general cases I switch and turn this back and forth to found every window, and when I go for the second layer I almost always find a window that I have missed. It's a little bit of yellow again on the windows, different shade. This might sound pretty insane, but I actually use 3 shades of yellows for the windows. This yellow, then we have this yellow, and this yellow is quite cold yellow, so a little bit of just tint to it. So I actually just make a little dot, add a little bit of green grass along the walls. Keep a pretty dry brush, we will just get a big wet lump instead. Just a little along the wall, in a corner where people don't walk. That's pretty much a city tile, but if we were doing this one or even a big one, we will just have to do it more of it. Some black. This does not mean that the water is extremely deep, it's just cloggy with things. And then I use some extra orange. have quite a few details to consider. We have rocks here, log here. Now we need to point them out. So now I think it's ready to varnish. Should just let it dry. And now we are back to this tile. It's a bit of darker shade here. I think it will be enough. And now we need to add a little bit of shades. More shades. And this little island here. Don't want the water high up on the stones. It looks pretty strange, so add a bit of grey shade to it. And same here, we want the water down on the water, not up on the mountain, stone, rock. And some really green stuff. And we can add a little bit of different green. Sorry, the brush is too wet again. So I think we might be ready with this one. Now we get to this one. So we have some green forest. We compare with this one, and we need to add a little bit of this green. What's missing now is the dry brush when it comes to the wood, but the paint needs to dry first, so we continue a bit with the water. Because I painted this one in the wrong color first, so I needed to paint this one to have the right colors in place. And we take our green. It's not that important now because it's an island, don't need to match it with something, but it's a color that is used for certain kind of ground. And we have some seaweed. Try to do what I did with the dry brush before, because I don't think I have room to dry brush that in particular. And of course we need our shades of blue for the water. And here between the islands I figure the water is pretty shallow. Something like that. I might want to have a little bit of shallow water, but we need to have this frame as deep water, so I don't want, from that point of view, I can't pull the shallow water further out. Just trees. Like that, and now it's time for our dark and half nightshade. Frame. After this, we will probably want to add a little shade on the stones and a dry brush. I figured it was time to add varnish to our swamp, and I use some quite ordinary varnish, nothing fancy at all, and it's not even made for small things, just ordinary hobby projects. And remember to clean your brush properly afterwards. And that's the main reason my brushes get thrown away, is because I've not cleaned them enough. And if you look at this one, you'll see that the orange sometimes is glossy and sometimes it's not. So I will do the same here. If you flip it around a bit in the light, you can see if you have managed to get varnish on the places where you want it to be. I know it's not visible in the camera, but it is to me. So there it is. And when we're talking varnish, we have 3 more pieces, but this one is not dry yet, so take a look at these 2. Tiles. The 5th with the island, I have put some varnish on and it hasn't dried yet. We have this one. I have put 1 more layer of varnish on it, on the water, but it's almost dry. And the other 2, I think they are good enough as they are. So we are going to dry brush. This one we have already dry brushed what I think is needed, so we'll leave that behind, and that leaves us these 2, and we'll also do a little work with this one. So dry brush, I use this green for dry brushing. And usually when I dry brush I use wet paint. There are also dry paint to buy from Citadel. I'm not a huge fan of those, but mostly because I don't want to have many colors of the same type, of the same color of different types. They are okay. So a little paint in the brush, and dry it off, then try it on your hand. If you see anything, it's too much paint in it, and then you start and after we have done that, we will need to go back to put grey on the stones, because now the stones also are green. So I will switch to this one. and usually I go over planes with the dry brush as well. It's not a huge visible difference, but it smooths things out a little bit.